A pastor indicted for allegedly stalking his wife, but the charges are coming more than a year after her death. And new details unfolding in the tragic multi-state murder plot against a college professor and a classroom full of students. And in Ohio, the jury has spoken in a cold case of a young mom found submerged in a pond back in 2001. The court of law has adjourned in all of those cases, so now let's get to court of opinion. Welcome to Court of Opinion. I'm Julia Janae. Thank you for joining us this hour for a live conversation, a space to air out the strong opinions and at times controversial viewpoints from a power panel of experts that we have on deck for you. And whether it's the court's final opinion or the court of public opinion, we are exploring all of it right here. Let's get right to our first case. This one grabbing so many headlines this week. The massive manhunt for the Brown University mass shooter and the MIT professor who was killed. That hunt ends. An autopsy determined that the shooter had been dead for 2 days after, or before rather, he was found. For our daily wrap, we're going to look at the highlights from the news conference that happened, including the major break in the case and what led police to the gunman.
The video of that subject matched the description of that person of interest that this police department was desperate to put handcuffs on. That individual was identified as Claudio Neves-Valente, date of birth, and he was a 48-year-old man. He was a Brown student, he was a Portuguese national, and his last known address was in Miami, Florida. And I will tell you that he took his own life tonight. We have members of the Providence Police Department up in Salem, New Hampshire, and we also have the BCI unit. Obviously, the FBI and their evidence recovery unit is up there, so the process is being conducted as we speak.
There is a sense of completeness in terms of the investigation, an investigation that's, if not the hardest, among the handful of hardest investigations that I've ever been involved with. And the sense that we owed those 2 dead Brown students and the 9 injured Brown students and the students who were in that auditorium that weren't injured and the Brown community and the Providence community results.
We got them. Shortly before 9 o'clock tonight, the FBI SWAT team executed court-authorized search warrants at a storage unit facility in Hampshire Road in Salem, New Hampshire. This is where we located Claudio Valente, the individual who we believe was responsible for the Brown shooting. The latest developments in an intense 5-day manhunt and is a result of an incredible amount of work dedicated by the law enforcement team standing here before you tonight. Every single agency brought their unique skills and expertise to this investigation.
All right, let's get right to our power panel to talk about this case. Joining me in studio, we have entertainment host Holland Reed with us and civil rights attorney David DeLucas with us as well. And joining us remotely, we have criminal defense attorney and former prosecutor Marie Pereira. So glad to have you all join this conversation. Holland, I want to start with you. Get your opinion on this one, because this one has had our attention all week. And now today, to know all of these details that are coming out about both of these cases in 2 different states. What's been your reaction to it?
My reaction was, thank God for the custodian and the people that were able to help identify and to the public, which plays a huge point in bringing these criminals to justice. And like you were saying before during the break, it's one thing for the FBI to come out and say, we got them, but also to have the people in the community help bring this man to justice. But also, what a coward. What a coward that he ends up in a storage facility instead of actually having accountability for what he did in these 2 states.
And David, there's so much more that we want to know in the public. What's your opinion on this one?
We're not going to know. There's just no way to really know what drives somebody to do these heinous acts. And our desire to know, we're human beings, we're very curious. We really want to know. But unless we find the manifesto, the video recording, something, we just won't know. And that's tragic, but again, it goes back to our desire as humans. We're curious, which is why people are tuning in right now.
Yeah, I think it's also about safety, Marie. When we think about these students who were vulnerable to this attack, and we have the MIT professor in his own home who was killed, people want to know how this happened and were there any warning signs?
Exactly. And you know what, Holland? Don't worry, honey. He will definitely have to be held accountable wherever he's going. Let's not forget he committed suicide, but there's another level of accountability, I believe, and he's going to get it worse than any court of law would give him. And I'm happy that the law enforcement involved the public, because there was no way that a person who knew him with that large abdominal girth would not recognize him in that weird walk. So yes, I'm glad the people got involved and were involved in detecting who he was. But he'll get his, no worries.
Yeah, let's talk more about the person that helped police majorly. I mean, they spent a lot of time during that press conference really praising this person who came forward. They didn't give a lot of details about him, but I want to listen back to Police Chief Oscar Perez talking about that person that they put the picture out of, someone who was in close proximity to the person that led them to the killer.
Subject of interest, Neves actually ran. He was caught up by our person that we wanted to speak with. There was sort of a conversation between the two of them, and Neves asked him, "Why are you harassing me?" And at that point, the person that broke the case walked away. And that information was critical to us because he was able to corroborate what our detectives were seeing on video, and he was able to provide a great explanation.
Holland, you were saying, thank goodness someone saw something, said something. There was also questions, though, about how much of it went on Reddit first before it actually came to the police, potentially. I don't know for sure what the timing was, but do you think that that's something that is happening more now, where we're seeing people go online with their information first?
Absolutely, absolutely. First of all, the sleuths, and I'm one of them, I go online all the time to do my own little private investigation. Like I said, I think sometimes I feel like I want to be a lawyer, and I go and figure out what's the case, what's going on. And you get so much more information and little details from other people's point of view all the time. And so thank goodness for the internet when it's actually used for good in this case, because we didn't know where this man came from. We didn't even know the history and why they were, I guess, associates at a previous school. So all those little pieces got put together, and we're able to not bring him to justice, as Maria was saying, but again, hopefully he will get his justice in the afterlife or what have you, if you believe in that.
Yeah, the FBI didn't even have that
Thank goodness for the
connection.
internet being what the internet was supposed to be. So
when it works,
amen for that.
when it works, it works.
When it works, it works.
And you're talking about the MIT professor who had the connection to this shooter. But initially, we thought these were just two tragedies. David, unrelated. The FBI said it was unrelated. But the Reddit poster, what do you think about Reddit justice in this situation?
I think it's phenomenal that in this day and age with AI, ChatGPT, Grok, we can process information. We can with the assistant. So it's even more fascinating with thousands of people going online, gathering information, processing it. Somebody comes up with something. The difficulty now, though, is law enforcement getting the volume of tips, because these days the tip line gets tens of thousands of calls, and the internet, emails and texts. They can't process all that information. So presumably the FBI and law enforcement in general are creating environments where they can process all of this information coming in from various sources and discern which is good and which is useless. And that is a help, it's a boost.
Marie, we learned in this case, after police were able to share more details, once they were able to locate who the gunman was, that he had been planning this for months, that he had rented the car, moved from Miami up to the Northeast to essentially stalk out what he was going to do. I mean, that kind of a motive. How interested are you in figuring out what his connection was outside of just attending school with the MIT professor, but what led him to not only go to that man's house, but also to Brown University? And how do you think that actually helps us if we do learn that?
I think it always helps to know what the motive of somebody who's maniacal and does something like that. And I don't know why, but when I heard the case, it made me think of the murder of Versace. That man who murdered him and then went on a murdering spree. And it's not the same case, but it just gave me that eerie feeling. And I think it's important for them to continue to put the dots together, even though he took his life, because sometimes when you learn the history of a crime and a criminal, it helps it not to occur again. And then one more word for Holland. You may not be an attorney, but it's not too late, because if you want to do it, I didn't become an attorney until I was in my mid-30s.
I love that. Thank you.
No. Holland needs to be a detective, not an attorney. We have plenty of attorneys.
Oh, my goodness. I love you guys.
All right, we're going to leave it there. We'll, of course, continue to bring any updates that we have out of the Brown University shooting. But when we come back, we first want to give you a programming note about something that's happening at 8 p.m. So in just an hour, the Reiner family murders, another big headline this week. A Court TV special is going to be airing tonight with our Court TV lead anchor, Vinny Politan. He's taking us inside the investigation. We've got our field reporter, Cody Thomas, who is there on the ground in Los Angeles with some of the developing details today, including what happened in the lead up to these murders. Up next, though, here on Court of Opinion, we are going to take you to Ohio, where a man's 24 years of freedom comes to an end after a jury reaches a verdict in the drowned wife murder trial.
Killing sent shockwaves through Hollywood.
Rob Reiner and his wife murdered.
Court TV takes you inside the investigation.
Their own son charged with their murders.
As a community mourns, and a troubled son is now a defendant in a double murder.
We will commit ourselves to bringing their murderer to justice.
The Reiner Family Murders, a Court TV special tonight, 8/7 Central on Court TV.
The state of Ohio versus Paul Daniel Hicks, 2025-0284. On the indictment for count 1, the murder, the jury finds the defendant guilty of murder of unclassified felony. It's dated December 19th, 2025.
Welcome back. A cold case, now a closed case. And after 24 years, justice has been served for Regina Hicks and her family. Regina vanished for days back in October of 2001. And then her Camaro was pulled out of a large Ohio pond. Her body found inside on the passenger side. And for years, her family was searching for answers. Police suspected her husband, Paul Hicks, but they didn't have anything definitively pointing to him until his best friend, Steve Gates, changed his story and flipped this case on its head. A jury just convicted Paul Hicks today for murdering his wife, the mother of his child. And here's a quick portion of those compelling closing arguments that were delivered by both the state and the defense.
Defendant, like even the most provincial resident in Willard, knows where that pond is. Half of Willard was out there when the call came in on October 22nd. The defendant knew exactly where to put his wife and that Camaro.
That's why you can't trust this guy. He's a charlatan. If lying was an Olympic event, that guy wins the gold, the silver, and the bronze. He's had 25 years to be truthful with law enforcement. And I think he's still and that's their business. But I'm not going to let them you.
Strong words from the defense attorney there about that star witness, Steve Gates, but it did not convince this jury. So now that it's all said and done and we are looking towards sentencing, we are looking back at what was the best evidence that these jurors had in this trial 24 years later. And let's start with the defense, because they didn't put on a case. They didn't even give an opening statement. So that closing argument, and though it's not technically evidence, that's the first theory that the jury heard on behalf of Paul Hicks, that there was no forensic evidence that connects Paul to Regina Hicks's murder. Let's take a look at what our team chose as the best defense evidence in this case.
Where's the beef? The lady from, Columbus. Witness thought that they had to call her. But let's get to the beef in the case. Zero forensic evidence linking Paul to the alleged crime scenes. Zero. None. Nothing. More importantly, far more importantly, zero forensic evidence to corroborate
the scientifically unverified fiction of charlatan Gates. You know whose name is conspicuously missing at all when you go back in the jury hearing? Steve Cates. No fingerprints. They sent fingerprints requests to the lab. Right? There's also 4 other men that were potential suspects that they didn't send any testing.
Oh, strong words there in that closing argument. Let's bring back on our guest panel, see what they think about the evidence that came out today. We have host Holland Reed with us, David DeLugas, attorney, and also joining us remotely, we have attorney Marie Pereira, who's with us as well. David, I want to start with you on this one.
Sure.
The defense there, they did what they could, but, you know, they didn't even start with an opening. So they didn't give this jury anything to think about throughout the case. Do you think that means they were expecting Paul Hicks to testify and he changed his mind?
No, actually, I think it's more, let's let them put on their case before we come up with what our position is going to be, because it may be influenced by what the state does and what the state doesn't do. And it seems somewhat compelling to some extent. Everybody wants to find out who done it, right? The jury wants to know who done it. Maybe they have the right guy. I'm not defending him. It seems like it's logical. But it's just as logical that Steve Gates, the friend who lied for 24 years, is now lying for some reason. Maybe he has a grudge against the defendant Hicks. Who knows? The real problem in our society with our criminal justice system, to me, is while the standard of proof needs to be beyond all reasonable doubt, it's difficult for humans, again, to attain that, and we're all looking for the forensic evidence. We watch TV shows, we watch movies, we've seen The Fugitive where the wrong guy got convicted, and now what do we have? A conviction. So
24 years later.
It is what it is.
Yeah. Marie Pereira, talk about that. I mean, there's this length of time. Thank goodness we don't have a statute of limitations on murder. But how do you think the defense did in trying to tell this jury that there was reasonable doubt?
I think they tried, and I want to say that I agree, and I'm going to say with my esteemed guest, because I secretly forgot my esteemed guest's name, but he's right there on point, because I said yesterday it was a he say situation, and that it could go either way. Frankly, I'm shocked. 25 years later, without scientifically verified evidence, and like his attorney said, scientifically unverified fiction of a charlatan. I love the words, by the way. The defense attorney did what he could, and I'm surprised at the verdict. I really am, because it could have gone either way. I agree with you 100%.
Colin, weigh in. What did you think about this case in general? I mean, the length of time, the cold case, but now the victims' families, they get justice after all of these years.
Yeah, I think I'm going to go agree and disagree with both of your guests here, Marie and Deb, because the thing is, it reminds me of the movie, we're talking about movies, What Lies Beneath. Everything is always going to come to the surface, you know, and I don't care how educated you are, I don't care who you are, if you keyed a car, if you murdered somebody, whatever you did is always going to come to surface. So this seems very strange, because I felt the same way. It was like, where's all the other evidence? And just, I think because of the friend coming 25 years later, as Maria said, it gives me pause to say what else has happened in those 25 years that allowed him to finally clear his conscience. There's something else, I think, at play here, and it's giving me complete movie documentary vibes where we're going to have to get the sleuths on this one. I'm going to be on Reddit and everywhere else trying to figure out there's more to this story, and I am surprised at the verdict, but also happy that at least there's some closure for the family.
Oh, yeah. Well, there's not always closure.
You know what, Holland?
Yeah.
You know what? Let's not forget about the immunity part. We didn't watch him testify, but what exactly is his history that he needed complete immunity? That's another thing.
That's another factor.
The immunity is because he lied for 25 years to law enforcement, so he is culpable for hindering an investigation.
But did he?
Or being an accessory to the after the fact.
Oh,
in many ways,
he was there.
He committed crimes, and yet, as Marie rightfully points out, her name is Marie, and she said correctly, he got immunity. The jury really needs to comprehend what that means. That means he can say anything and it doesn't matter.
I I just want to say, it's one of those things where people say, get you a friend that helps you bury the body. I think he had that friend for 25 years, and then now that's no longer a friend. So something happened. Something happened along the way.
I want to talk more about Stephen Gates. I'm going to ask our producers if we can skip ahead to, we were going to discuss Stephen Gates and his testimony, because it was really powerful on the stand for these jurors. They didn't allow us to record it, but he did tell us some information that we didn't know before about what may have been part of the lead up. So he opted out again of being recorded, but he testified about the last time that he saw Regina alive, and he said this. The prosecution asked him, what did you see when you returned? And he said, I remember the driver side window was down, and I looked in the car and I saw Regina crumpled up on the passenger side. The prosecutor asked, where was the defendant? And he said he was outside of the passenger door and said, dude, she's blank dead. And he also claims that he was threatened by not only the defendant, but also the defendant's family. So I'm adding that to the conversation that he said for all of those years, he felt like not only was his family threatened, but his cattle, they're there in Ohio, rural area, was threatened. And he's now on dialysis, has some health problems that could have led to why he came forward. Does that change anyone's opinion of Stephen Gates?
It probably doesn't change my opinion of Stephen Gates, but I go to Marie's point. If you're on the jury and you have to convict somebody of a crime, put them away forever, potentially, I don't know if the death penalty was on the table, beyond a reasonable doubt, and yet it's a he said, and you don't know what's motivating him, maybe he just decided to make up the story. Because all of these events from 24 years ago, how accurately would any of us remember something even as traumatic as that was? If he was there, in fact, was he there? Do we really know he was there?
The defendant didn't take the stand, Marie. He could have.
Well, he has the right not to take the stand. And if they felt like, you know, there was enough room there for the jurors to come up with the reasonable doubt, and if they did a risk-benefit cost analysis of what would it mean to put him on the stand subject to cross-examination, they rolled the dice and it failed. I agree 100% with David. You know, you have to look at the totality of the circumstances. And I think all of the other history he had with the domestic violence against the wife worked not in his favor. And the fact that she filed for divorce, he filed for divorce, there was beef between them, and she had a whole other man. You know what happens when that happens. BrianWalsh.com, okay?
The prosecution said that, Marie. They said, you've got the motive. We've got motive. He was the one who had the motive to kill Regina. She was independent. She wanted child support. She was not trying to deal with him, and she was fighting back, and that he couldn't stand for that. Are you surprised that they didn't take this case, Holland, to trial back then? Even if they didn't have Stephen Gates, they still had the motive. They still had this vehicle, her passenger side car, and she was on her way to go see him.
I'm surprised, and just learning more about the case, all of the things were in play, and obviously domestic violence, we know it creeps up and then it can become explosive, and it's always the person closest to you. So when we see all these cases over the years where it's the husband, I'm always like, okay, check the husband, check the boyfriend.
Or the wife.
Or the wife.
Thank you.
And so, yes, resident, yes. But it was, there we go. Yeah, but it was very surprising to learn more about it, going, okay, so yes, this man, his friend, maybe he was scared, maybe he was bullied, maybe he felt threatened, and that's perfectly fine. But it still did not make sense for me that they didn't explore all of the, evidence further at that time, and then now it's the he say, she say, like you said.
We've all heard the expression, you can indict a ham sandwich. I'm shocked that given that the deceased the victim was in the passenger seat, and we had the motive then, why not take it to trial, put the friends on the stand, do the investigation, and roll the dice then? Because if you're going to get justice, do it 24 years ago, please. Please.
That's an interesting point, that they could have then subjected Stephen Gates to cross-examination. And Marie, he may have had a different take if he's on the stand and under penalty of perjury.
You know, I don't think he would have had a different take. I think he just simply, told what he knew. You know what I wondered too, on a serious note? For 25 years, he was a suspect, right? And they didn't have enough evidence to bring this case to the grand jury and then bring it to trial. They had a child together. I'm wondering, did that child stay with him? or did the child go live with the woman's family? Just a thought, because to live 25 years with a person suspected of murdering your mother, and how does the child, take this now? Holland, there's something for you to investigate. Go find out for me, girl.
The sleuths are on it, Marie. We got it.
I do want to get David's reaction to that. As a family law attorney, you've got this child that's at the center, was actually there at the scene, sleeping in the car when the mother was eventually killed. This is a child that's grown up with maybe not knowing, and they would be 28 years old now.
I can speak with authority on the state of Georgia. If one of the parents is deceased, the other spouse is the only custodial parent. Sometimes relatives, grandparents, and others try to step in and seek custody, but you have to have grounds, and there's a case recently in the Georgia Supreme Court I was part of, and it has to show clear and convincing evidence of harm to the child. Otherwise, everybody else is out of the picture. It's just the dad. So, to Marie's question, while I don't know, it's a little speculation, but it's based on my knowledge of the law, it's almost certain that he would have raised this child this entire time, which begs the question, how did he live with the guilt? If he did it.
We have to leave it there. Thank you all for your opinions on this one. Sentencing happens for Paul Hicks on January 9th. When we come back, we are going to go beyond the gavel and look ahead to a case that is on the docket to start in the new year. This is the murder trial for an 81-year-old Ohio man, and you can see the moment that the defendant confronts an unsuspecting Uber driver at gunpoint, but there is much more to the story. We'll talk about it after this.
I'll call 911. Stop. No, you're not leaving. Right. No, you're not. You're not leaving in one hole. Stop. Yeah, stop. Get in. Stop. Get in. Help! Help! Help!
That chilling dash cam video, it's a key piece of evidence in the upcoming trial that we are going to be following here at Court TV. The Killing the Messenger murder trial is scheduled to begin in January in Ohio at the beginning of the month. The defendant is 81-year-old William Brock. He is charged with murder after shooting and killing an Uber driver, Lolitha Hall, in April of 2024. But here's what makes this case unique. Investigators say she was actually sent to his home, unbeknownst to her, by scammers to retrieve a package. And Brock had been on the phone with those scammers who were demanding money from him. Brock believes she was with them. But Hall's dash cam shows that Hall, according to prosecutors, never threatened or demanded anything from Brock other than to ask about that package when he pulled a gun. She tried to get away. He blocked her from leaving and ultimately shot her twice, killing her. Let's bring back in our panel to talk about this one that's on the docket. We have Holland Reed with us, David DeLugas, and Marie Pereira. Marie, I'm going to start with you, joining us remotely. Tell me your opinion on this one. Should William Brock be on trial when he was a scam victim himself?
I think he should be on trial because he took it to the next level. Assuming everything is true, right? If she showed up and he thought she had something to do with it, why not call the police? And the fact that he shot her twice, why? Why, if you just didn't want her to leave, shoot her once, disable her? That would have been wrong. But the fact that he took it that far, this is so heartbreaking because the woman looks so harmless. She's limping even before the shooting. She looks like somebody who's not disabled, but just trying to make a living when she should have been retired even. I can't. He really needs to be held responsible, but I think the jurors might look at it differently and somehow justify this homicide. It's not a slam dunk for prosecution. Although for me, he's wrong on all levels.
All right, your co-panelists are shaking their head about the jury seeing this differently. Holland, we'll start with you.
Well, I think there's two things at play here. It's the fact that he was scammed. He's an elderly man. He probably, was fearing something and wanted to take matters into his own hand. That's the other point, is an elderly man has this maybe idea that he is the law or that he has the right to take matters into his own hand, which is maybe why he did not call the police, as Marie said. But that's the problem here, is that we've all had our parents or family members or somebody that's gotten that phone call that they're ready to go, cash in a check. But this as Marie said, takes it to another level. He could have called the police. He could have not even had to disable her. He could have just not gone outside and given the package. He could have stayed in his home. Right. So I believe that if a jury is going to look at this and say, well, what were your options here? The first thing he decided to do was pull a gun on this unsuspecting woman. I think that's where, I don't care if you're 81, 21, you made the wrong decision, and that's what it's going to come into play.
Now, David, we know that the scammers probably told him, don't call police, and we're coming for you and your nephew.
It doesn't matter what the scammers said, doesn't matter what the scammers did. He made choices. It's cash and money, give it or don't give it. You do not resort to violence to protect property. That's the standard in the law. And I'm going to disagree with Marie on the thing, this about the trial. But maybe Marie will agree with me when she hears it. This should not go to trial because he should just be accountable, accept the fact that he screwed up. He went too far. You were wrong, Mr. Brock. Just take your punishment. There is no excuse for what he did. I'm sickened by this, and we should not have to go as a society through trials to prove somebody guilty when, again, there's no justification for turning to violence, deadly violence, to protect property.
Let's listen to the 911 call that William Brock made. I'll get to you in just a moment, Marie. We're going to listen to the 911 call and let you react to that.
I need the sheriff and the ambulance real quick out here. There's been a shooting. Well, I shot her in the leg the first time, and I shot her in the shoulder. The guy on the phone has been trying to get money out of me, and he was telling me he was going to kill me and the family and everybody else around.
Marie, weigh in.
All I have to say is I'm not trying to turn this into a racial situation, but for everyone who thinks, you know, it's not to do with race, it could be his voice, his demeanor, the venue matters. We can bring him to trial, but getting a conviction, venue matters, and I'm putting it in air quotes, okay? Thank you.
Can I jump in here really quick? Because, so my father is multiracial, but he loves watching the old Wild West shows and movies, and he subscribes to that to this day. He feels entitled. He has this idea of entitlement, and whether it's race or not, it is an old school mentality, and I hate to say it, but sometimes it is this older sling and gun mentality, and if it's a black woman or whoever that you think that you can just be in charge of, you're superior then cases like this, unfortunately, happen.
I feel like his age matters.
His age matters.
81, even hearing his voice on that 911 call, not just about whether or not he believed the scammers, but even if there may be, we of course know very sharp 81-year-olds, but will his defense be arguing some kind of cognitive decline?
I don't doubt that at all. In fact, by the way, I'm multiracial Asian American, but the point, I don't see or hear, and I appreciate what Marie's saying, but in this case, I agree more with Holland that this is just somebody who has gotten too old to think clearly, but it still doesn't justify what he did. Now, he isn't going to probably plead guilty by reason of insanity because he's not insane, but he was making a conscious choice. He said he made that choice. It doesn't matter if people are threatening on the phone to kill your family. If they're there threatening you, you have a right to defend yourself. If they're on the phone threatening you, you don't get to go hunt them down. And that's what he did.
Yeah, he made a clear choice to go get the gun. So
the scammers actually called while he was there. I want to see if we can quickly play a little bit of that, where the police were on the scene and the scammers called, and they actually spoke to the police momentarily.
You ready?
Yeah, I'm on.
Do we want to know? Hello?
Yes, hello?
Hello?
Yes, who is this?
May I ask who I'm talking to?
Yes, this is the officer speaking.
Okay, what officer?
Yes.
No, I need to know what officer, sir.
You're going to be in trouble.
Okay. Let me ask you this. The female you sent over here, you know who she is?
Yes, I do.
Okay, well, she's been in an accident. And this is an accident.
And they hung up and were never heard from again. David, there's going to be frustration for these jurors as to why there's not another person sitting there next to Mr. Brock.
I have to agree with you on that. And let's assume, because we have no facts, let's not speculate. She was not involved in this. She's an innocent victim who was told by an Uber, and probably Uber can verify it, she was directed, go pick it up. And for those who don't know, you can get an Uber ride, but you can also have Uber go pick up your package. You can have Uber deliver food. You can have Uber deliver your envelope across town that you used to use courier services. We in the legal profession know we used to do that. So yes, the jury's going to be tempted to allow his age to be a factor. And as sympathetic as I am to an old fella, I really am, I still think we as a society say, I'm sorry, you made the wrong choices. You could have called 911. You could have not taken your gun out. You could have used the gun and watched TV, shoot the tires out from her car. Holy cow, come on, don't shoot her.
It's going to be a tall order for this jury, no doubt. January 12th is when they are coming to that courthouse there in Ohio for jury selection, and we will cover that here on Court TV. We've got to get to a break, but coming up, we're going to get the hot takes on the cold facts. Our panel giving their most outlandish opinions on today's biggest headlines, including these cases. A fight breaks out at a teenager's sentencing in a murder trial. Plus, a partial verdict delivered in the cosmetic filler child killer trial of Maya Hernandez. And this case, a South Carolina pastor faces federal charges now in connection to his late wife allegedly taking her own life.
Brutal killings send shockwaves through Hollywood.
Rob Reiner and his wife murdered.
Court TV takes you inside the investigation.
Their own son charged with their murders.
As a community mourns, and a troubled son is now a defendant in a double murder.
We will commit ourselves to bringing their murderer to justice.
The Reiner Family Murders, a Court TV special tonight, 8/7 Central on Court TV.
Welcome back. Let's get to our hot takes on the cold facts of the big legal headlines developing today. And here's how we do this segment. Because we want to get to all the cases and hear from everyone on our seasoned panel, we are going to let them make their arguments, and we'll give them 25 seconds on the clock to state their case. Before we get their hot takes, here are the cold hard facts for our first headline. Chaos breaks out in a Wisconsin courtroom as a teenager faced sentencing for murdering a young woman outside of her home. Take a look at this video.
If you cannot conform to the behavior expectations I set forth, you need to leave. All right, stop! Stop! Everyone, stop!
Now, the judge then threatened contempt charges if this continued. They took an hours-long break, and after the order was restored there in that courtroom in Wisconsin, the judge sentenced the 16-year-old to life in prison without the possibility of parole. That is Paris Larry Jr. This is in the shooting death of Tatiana Zek back in 2023. He was 14 years old when this happened, and the judge did not give him any mercy despite the request from his defense team. Let's bring in our power panel. Still here with us. Remember, they have 25 seconds on the clock to state their case. We have host Holland Reed and attorney David DeLucas and Marie Pereira, former prosecutor as well. Marie, I'm going to start with you on this one. We've been talking about this throughout the day. What is your hot take on what happened in court today? 25 seconds.
I'm not surprised, because even me as an analyst, I was outraged when I was on the other show, and I had to restrain myself. But now that I'm here, I don't have to restrain myself. He did that, and he deserves everything that he got. And then on top of it, they're harassing the victim's family, allegedly, outside. So you know what? People wanted to beat people up. I get that. If my daughter was murdered like that, I'd want somebody to pay too, and I'd want to raise fists.
Holland Reed, what is your take on the emotions inside of a courtroom?
Absolutely. I mean, it's passionate. It's a passionate case. They lost one child. Now they're losing another child to his sentencing. So everyone is going to be up in arms, and it's a sad case all around. But at the end of the day, it's passionate, but you can also maybe see where he gets that passion from, why he committed the crime in the first place. So I'm just going to say it's on the family. Like Maria said, he did it, but unfortunately, passion is passion and it happens. But decorum is also decorum in a courtroom.
It is important. Let's move to David. 14 years old, sentenced to life without parole. Your take, 25 seconds.
I'm not sure he had any idea what he was doing. He's just evil and did wrong. The families being there on each side, hey, support your kid, but he did wrong. It's explosive. The court and the court staff needs to have taken control earlier, way earlier. That is to be expected. You can't put those people in the same environment. Separate them. Do it remotely. It's Zoom days. Come on. Put half the family of the, well, whichever way the court could do it.
And that's the time, David. Let's move to our second story. We have this one out of California, where prosecutors must decide whether or not they're going to retry a mother who left her child in a hot car. This was after a partial verdict was reached in the cosmetic filler child killer trial for Maya Hernandez. Now, the jury on Thursday deadlocked on the top charge, second-degree and involuntary manslaughter, second-degree murder and involuntary manslaughter. They found her guilty of the charge of child abuse. Now, back in June, her one-year-old son died after being left in that hot car for more than 2 hours while she got cosmetic procedures done. Let's get our panel's take on this one. Holland, I'm going to start with you. The jury couldn't come to a decision on whether this was murder or manslaughter.
My take is going to be this. If you can't afford a babysitter, maybe you can't afford a spa treatment, period. And then also, how devastating is it that now she does have the other child that survived from the hot car situation? So it is devastating all around, and I can't believe they couldn't reach a verdict because she's guilty. It's neglect, period. And now she has an abandoned child, an orphan, so to speak, and one child that's dead. It's so unfortunate across the board.
Yeah, really tragic story. Marie, your take on prosecutors having to weigh what they're going to do.
Listen, Holland, they found her guilty of child abuse and neglect. They didn't find her guilty of intentional murder. You know why? Because as terrible as it was for her to leave those kids in the car, she left them with food and she left the car running. She just had no idea that the mechanism of the car shut off the AC. That, she was found guilty of what she did, neglect. She did not intentionally murder those kids.
Marie, that's your time. David, final thoughts on Maya Hernandez.
Marie did her homework. I did the same thing. When I learned that it was the car that shut off, that she did not know shut off after 1 hour, I would say, what if you left your children at home and there was a power outage and you were in Nevada, Arizona, and the temperatures rose? It would be similar. She did not know. Horrible decisions to take her kids to the spa. I agree, get the babysitter, but abuse is far more reasonable.
All right, so let's move to our third story. This one out of South Carolina. A pastor there faces a federal charge for allegedly cyber-stalking his estranged wife in the 2 years before her death by suicide. Now, a federal grand jury indicted John Paul Miller on claims of cyber-stalking and making false statements to federal investigators. This is according to a press release from the Department of Justice. Investigators say, among other things, he posted a nude photo of Micah Miller online, his wife, and tracked her movements, interfered with her finances. He's repeatedly denied being involved in her death, citing her mental health challenges, and her death has been officially ruled a suicide. David, let me start with you on this one. 25 seconds.
Honestly, we don't have enough facts in this case to really opine in any direction. I'm appalled. Suicide's a mental health issue. It's a horrible thing to endure. How he facilitated, participated, stalking, bad idea, don't do it. Let's see what the evidence shows. Right now, I don't know.
Let's move to Holland.
I'm just going to take the personal route because this happened to me. So I had a stalker who stalked me relentlessly, and it drove me crazy. They had me thinking I was insane. They were using their earpods to stalk me. They were harassing me. They were posting things of me online that I was not aware of, and it did cause so much damage to my mental health. But I do believe that he has responsibility to play in the part of her possibly losing her life.
All right, moving final word to Marie Pereira, 25 seconds.
You know, I'm on the board of a women's shelter, Shepherd's Door, and I'm a victim advocate. And this just shows you domestic violence is not always about I'll punch you in the face and I'll stab you. It's about control. It's about harassment, isolation, cyber crimes against her, ruining her reputation, just harassing her. And he's a whole pastor. It'd be the pastors that you have to look out for.
We will see what happens in that case. Marie, David, Holland, thank you so much for being here. That's our time. But